Everybody, welcome back. So this week, I thought maybe we'd do a little tooling project. This is a little death moth I drew up a long time ago. I just tweaked the drawing a little bit more. This will be up on the website for just a couple bucks. Yeah, let's get into it. I've already traced the pattern onto my case leather. There's a whole video on it if you go further back on my channel to see how that's done. And yeah, we'll start with our swivel cuts. This one is a little bit more complicated. There's a lot of like little sort of smaller curves and stuff, but nothing too crazy. So just take your time, you know, kind of in the little small areas. And as always, feel free to change these up a bit too. I've seen some really cool things that people have taken my patterns and like added a bunch of stuff to the background or just kind of played around with it. You know, they're just meant as a resource and a little inspiration. So I just went with the death moth. You know, it's October. It's my favorite month of the year. Everything gets a little spookier. It's when all the weirdos come out. So I'll probably be doing some more kind of Halloween focused pieces this month. At some point we might dive into marbling as well. I have a couple little commissions with that coming up, so I might just give you guys some pointers. Now there's kind of these larger dots within the pattern, and so what I've done on mine is I just put like a little pencil mark where they go, and I'm not going to be cutting around them. What I'm going to do is just use like a little round tooling stamp instead to bring out that detail. And when I bevel this little buddy, I'm not going to bevel around the antenna area, and I'll show you why once we get there. And if I'm coming up on intersections and where lines kind of touch, I like to come from one side and then the other, not necessarily going all the way through, because then you run the risk of skating over the line and hitting this other piece that you don't necessarily want to line through. When you're doing this too, you can also add your own little lines and details. You know, maybe add some different shapes in here. Throw in a little diamond or something. And that's it. So the swivel cuts don't take too long. Yeah, we'll get down into some tooling. I'm just going to lay out some stamps and we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm going to try something a little bit new with the camera angle here in hopes that maybe it's a little bit easier for y'all to see sort of what I see and what I'm doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and start going around with this heavy check beveler. Maybe Let me know in the comments. For those of you that have watched a few of these, sort of which angles work better, what's easier to see. That'd be like, okay. We'll see if we can make this work. It's extremely hard to film tooling just as it shakes quite a bit, and I don't have an assistant or like a very good camera setup yet. Eventually we'll work on that, but I'm not sponsored or getting paid or anything for stuff like this, so it's going to be a little bit slow to sort of sink money into it. Okay. We'll try this again. The whole camera angle experiment, massive fail, but you don't know unless you try, right? So anyways, just gonna keep going around this little guy. Laying down those bevels. Just making little textures for all that antiquing. If you saw last week's video, that'll just grab really nicely in all these little details. Some people like to use a weight. I like to have like the freedom of being able to push my piece around, so usually I'll just use my pinky to kind of hold down the piece while I'm tooling it. And we're coming up on the little antennae here. So I'm just going to do that little trick like I've shown before and shove part of my finger up underneath the back part of the beveler so it's not hitting the antenna. And so, as I was saying, the details in the antenna are quite thin. Personally, I don't want to go around the whole outside of them. I will do a little bit around its little sort of face here, but I feel like going around them with a beveler might kind of wash it out a little bit. So what I'm going to do there is come in with my modeling spoon and just kind of thicken up and straighten out those, well, not straight, it's like a bit of a curve, but just really accentuate those lines, make them nice and deep. They'll fill up nicely with antique or paint or whatever you end up finishing them with. I'm going to do the same in a couple areas. Just like these lines here, I don't want to bevel any of that. I just want them to be nice and pronounced. So I'm just going to use my modeling spoon for that. And I'm just using like the little sort of pointed side. And you can use all kinds of stuff for this. I have some little dental tools that I sometimes use. You can get them at the recycling depot for nothing if you take a couple bucks to kind of pass along to the guys that work there. They'll usually let you take some little stuff. Like I used to get bags, little autoclave bags full of sort of little dental tools and stuff. They're quite nice for working in clay and soft metals and wax and stuff like that. I mean, obviously you can buy them all new, but it's nice when you can get them for next to nothing. One area that I am going to want to bevel here though, and I'm going to go in with my horizontal or vertical striped beveler, and I'm actually going to use the little bit of a bigger one, and I'm going to really accentuate the skull a little bit. I do want that part to sort of pop out. I know on an actual death moth it's more of just a marking, but for the sake of this kind of like tattoo-y sort of style, it doesn't have to be hyper realistic. And I'm going to softly, so I'm not going as deep as I normally do with this beveler, just a very soft amount between here and the head. So if you can see that, it's lightly accentuated there, but it's quite a bit deeper sort of in there. And I'm going to use the smaller one to go around the little teeth. You gotta be careful with these little tiny ones because it is such a small surface area. They do tend to go quite deep with very little effort. So I go pretty slow and pretty soft with these. I'll go over them more than once. They do act as like a little bit of a lifter. So just be mindful of that as well. I mean, you can also use a checkered beveler or whatever you want to do this part too. And I am going to go around his little body as well too, just to kind of separate it a little bit from the wings. Just give it a little more dimension. And then, like I was talking about before, for the dots, there's like a few different ways you can do this too. Like there's some that are just like a little round sort of stamp. This one's kind of cool. I think this is used in like floral carvings, but it does have some like little lines around it. So we're just going to use that. So it does leave like a circle with like a little bit of kind of a shadow around it, which I think is very cool. And these come in a lot of different sizes. You know what? I do know the technical name. I think this is just a floral center, maybe? I don't know. Feel free to correct me on that. And then I'm just going to use the smooth one for these larger ones up here. And I have been asked why I double tap, and part of it is I like to start slowly, give it like a little bit of a tap to sort of like set it into place, and then if I want it to go deeper or like more pronounced, then I'll hit it again. A little bit's also kind of force of habit too. It's just the way I do it. And then we're going to grab, you've seen this in a couple videos, it's just a textured, like a matting stamp. It might not be small enough though. These are quite little spaces. Little buddy. Okay, got one. So this is a very tiny little textured teardrop. And it's just going to get into the eyes. This isn't a necessary step either. I mean, if you want to just fill them with paint, or, you know, you can use whatever you have handy. Everybody's got different stamp collections and things, which, you know, you kind of build up over time. I was extremely lucky. A friend of mine used to make gear for CSA battles and stuff, and they lent me all their old tooling stamps. So it's just not something they're doing at the moment. So I'm kind of keeping them safe, and they let me try them out and see what I like. And it's been really, I feel like it's been a really great privilege to be able to do that. And there we go. Like, this is a pretty quick one. A lot of the depth you're going to get out of either the way you decide to paint it or when you antique it. But as far as the tooling goes, that's about it. I'm going to maybe accentuate these little lines here. But I'm very happy with that. I know this is a little bit of a shorter one, but there you go. Just a fun little death moth. I'll put a link in the description. The pattern will be maybe $2 on my website. And you are, as always, with any pattern that I sell, you're free to use this for your own work. You can sell it. You know, there's no sort of limit on it. I'm not going to sell you a pattern and tell you you're not allowed to make it for things to sell. I think that's a little bit silly. There we go. Just give them some extra little teeth. But that's it. Thank you so much for following along. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I hope you all have a very nice week and happy crafting.